All set.
We are ready. Hi, Secretary Clinton.
Hi,
Great to see you back in New York.
It's great to be here with you, thanks.
Thank you for sitting down with Mother Jones.
I'm glad to.
So you write in your book that the impact of voter suppression didn't get enough attention in 2016. And there was one study that found that there were 1 million lost votes in the 2016 election. So do you think voter suppression cost you the election?
I think it contributed to the outcome. I think in a couple of places, most notably Wisconsin, I think it had a dramatic impact on the outcome. But I also think that Wisconsin was the target for a lot of weaponized false information, and whatever role that played in conjunction with the suppression, so that some people stayed home, some people may have switched their vote away from me. But at the end of the day, the very clear policy of the Republican administration in Wisconsin to shrink the electorate and suppress votes certainly cost me votes and very well could have cost me the election there. We have got to do much more, number one, to fight against these voter suppression techniques and gerrymandering, because they do go hand in hand. But we've got to figure out a way to help equip people who want to vote, because if we don't, I'm worried. I'm worried about 2018 because both some of our Senate incumbents are from states that have really turned the spigot against access to voting, and I just don't want to see us lose races that we could have won if we'd gotten people actually to vote.
So you mentioned weaponized disinformation. I want to ask you about that because this obviously relates to voter suppression.
Right.
What impact do you think Russian interference had in the election?
I think it was one of the major contributors to the outcome. Propaganda works, advertising works. It's a form of propaganda. So the Russians may have started out a little heavy-handed and clumsy about it, but they were clearly getting guided as to where to target a lot of their fraudulent claims and their phony news. And I say that because it also, you have to talk about it in conjunction with the theft of the DNC emails and John Podesta's emails, and then the weaponization of those. It was, oh my gosh, John Podesta mentions the word pizza. That's code for Hillary Clinton and John Podesta running a child trafficking ring. People believed that stuff, Ari. And why? Because they saw it on the internet. And so this was a very successful disinformation campaign.
So between the Republican voter suppression you talked about and Russian interference, do you think it was a legitimate election?
I think that there are lots of questions about its legitimacy, and we don't have a method for contesting that in our system. That's why I've long advocated for an independent commission to get to the bottom of what happened, because look, this is the first time we've ever been attacked by a foreign adversary and then they suffer no real consequences. And so I'm worried that we're not learning all the lessons. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I wanted people at least to understand what I saw as the factors, including, shortcomings of myself and my campaign. But the forces at work outside my campaign are not going away. Somebody else is going to be running for Congress or governor or eventually president. We've got to know how to protect ourselves.
So you have a lot of questions about the legitimacy of the election.
I do, sure, because I think as we learn more about it, we know that the web of connections between people on Trump's team and Russian representatives just gets more and more dense. Certainly the Trump administration has no interest in finding out the truth. They're allergic to the truth in a lot of settings, so they're certainly going to be trying to do everything they can to prevent it from coming out here. But Republicans need to understand that this can turn on them as well. I may have been the primary victim, but there were other Democrats, as you know and as you've covered, who were also caught up in some of the stolen emails and the kinds of weaponized information attacks. We're all at risk if we allow a foreign power to insinuate itself into our election and begin to affect how voters think. And I hope that Republicans will understand their responsibility is to our country first and party second.
One more question about Russia. So you called Donald Trump Putin's puppet, famously,
yes, I did,
in a presidential debate.
Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
Do you still think he's Putin's puppet?
I do. I don't know how the President of the United States, with all of the concerns about the integrity of our elections, could meet with Putin just recently and basically say, well, you know, he told me again he didn't do it. I can't believe that he's so naive. I think that he hopes or expects the rest of us to be naive, or at least the people who support him to be naive. Clearly, his relationship with, or his dependence on, or his worries about Putin personally outweigh his responsibilities to our country and his duty to execute laws.
Election day 2017 was a very good night for Democrats.
Right.
Kind of what some people were hoping for in 2016.
Yes.
Do you have any predictions for 2018?
My hope is, and it's not yet a prediction, but my hope is that we will continue the momentum and have the energy that we saw, but it won't amount to anything if, number one, we don't have good candidates and we don't help them prepare and we don't help train them and we don't support them. Number two, if we don't deal with voter suppression and try to get better prepared than we were in 2016 to combat its effects. But if we do all of that, I think we've got a real shot in 2018, and that's what I'm putting all my energy into.
Thank you so much, Secretary Clinton. It was great to sit down with you.
Nice to talk to you. Thank you. And
Really appreciate it.
I want to thank you for your coverage of suppression, because, boy, it was one of the most undercovered stories in 2016.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.